Hi, I'm Mitch Gallagher from Sweetwater. It's an absolutely gorgeous day in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and we're here on location to visit HQ for iZotope. We're going to be stepping inside to have an interview with Mark Ethier, the CEO and founder of the company. We'll be talking about where the company came from, the story of how they've grown to the point where they are today, and how they come up with all those great products. Let's check it out. Mark Ethier, CEO, president, founder, king of iZotope, right?
CEO and co-founder. I'll take that. How about that? Yeah.
Go with that. Thanks for taking time to sit down with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
You've had a busy day today. I was watching you earlier. You were giving a class really for visiting German entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I was very lucky. One of the things that I love to do is to mentor. And this is one of those places where a whole bunch of people who want to start companies, and we're coming here to learn what I learned. So That's what I was doing, yeah.
Well, what a great example in the last, going on, I guess, about 20 years now, right?
Yeah,
approaching 20 years anyway?
Started in 2001, so getting to 20 years in February of next year.
Yeah, that's crazy. But the growth of the company in that time and the products you've put out and the technology that you guys have advanced is really astounding.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, we're checking out some of the new features in Ozone 9.
Yep.
And wow, it's just mind-blowing.
Yeah, I feel like we've been very lucky through the years because, one, I know that there have been times when we've had these great innovations and then I think, oh my gosh, we'll never be able to figure out something beyond that. And the team here just constantly surprises me with figuring out that next idea or that next thing.
Right, right. So take us back to 2001. I heard you mention that the very first sale was online. Someone downloaded the product in October of 2001,
Yes,
right?
yeah, that was Ozone. So when I started the company, I was actually an undergrad at MIT, and I was studying computer science and music. I actually thought I'd be a film music composer, and they were totally separate. And it wasn't until I did an internship at Cakewalk, actually, that used to be over here near MIT, that I realized, oh my gosh, I could do these two things together. And that really led me to get a group of friends together. And we first created Vinyl, which was a free plugin. And we did it for two reasons. One, we just wanted to see whether or not people would care if we did something. And also doing Vinyl, as we joked, if it didn't sound good, we could just say, well, you know, it's vinyl. It's okay. Which I've probably offended somebody who loves vinyl out there, which is not my intent. And we did that when we were still undergrads. And we put it up on a website and thousands of people downloaded it. And that was enough for us to think, you know what if we spent this summer after we graduate and make something to sell? And that's where Ozone came. So, you know, we were home hobbyist musicians trying to figure out how to make a great recording, and mastering was the black art. It was the thing that nobody knew how to do. And so we really wanted to figure it out and help make it so that other people could do it too. And at the end of that summer, we put it up on a website and emailed all the people who had downloaded Vinyl, and the first person to buy it was somebody in Italy. And I woke everybody up and said, we're international. We did it. And that's how we were off and running.
That's an awesome story.
Oh, thank you.
So you're a piano player.
I am, yeah. So piano player is my main instrument. My degree is actually in composition, and that's where the film music side came in, but actually almost entirely classical. And so for me, there's some elements of that which I think helped in the early years, because my training at MIT was a very classical conservatory education. So a lot about ear training, a lot about listening. And that's what I tell people is you can have the greatest tools in the world, but if you can't hear what you want, you're not going to get a great result. So my advice to engineers who are starting out or producers is listen a lot.
Right.
Train your ear. Get to know how to learn how to hear. That's one of the most important things.
Right.
Yeah.
As we've spent the day here at headquarters and talked to some of the engineers and the QA people and actually everybody in the building, so many of them are musicians. And I think that brings a unique perspective to what you guys are doing here, that you really are approaching it from that musical standpoint.
Yeah, for sure. It's different when, it's funny, I was talking to a friend who runs a company in a totally different industry, and the people that work there don't have any connection to what they do. And he said, it's really hard to get them to understand what a customer cares about and what they want. And here, the people, a lot of them go home and use our products at night.
Right.
So they come in the next day and say, okay, we did this, but it does not work. I can't get what I want out of it. So I think to have that insight into not just kind of imagining what your customers want, but to actually be a customer, I think brings a level of insight, passion, connection that it's one of the reasons why I love working here, is to have that feeling in the building.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So originally it was yourself. There were 6 of you originally.
Yeah,
that
we
were
started
working,
with 6 people.
and you're somewhere around 200 people now. Is that right?
Yeah, we're getting close to that now.
Yeah.
We've been hiring a lot of people, and we have a lot of positions opening, and so growing as we go. But
Right.
started with 6, yeah.
Right. So what is it that has driven you to maintain that entrepreneurial spirit and that spirit of innovation that you've had?
Yeah, it's one of the things that, honestly, the answer changes as we grow and as we change, as we grow and add more people. I think, to me, one important thing is trying things that have never been done before and hiring people who want to do that. And some of that is about being okay with failure. And so we've done some stuff that hasn't worked, or we've never been able to finish it, or we've put it out in the world and customers have said, we don't really care. Right. And for me, that's part of what innovation is about. It's about trying things. And there's an artist who said, every once in a while, I like to release an album that my fans don't like, because to me, it means I'm pushing boundaries. I know that I'm actually expanding as an artist and I'm trying different things. And so for us, we try to create a culture where it's okay to fail and to try things. And we try to build a relationship with our customers where we say, hey, we're trying some new things. And luckily, we've had an industry that is willing to embrace that and try it along with us and be very honest with us to the things they love and the things they hate. And to me, that's part of what's driven that over the years.
Right, right. You were talking earlier, and also some of the engineers spoke to us about, you have actually a research team here, and they're working on projects that may or may not ever even end up being anything. You don't know because it's research, right?
Yeah, no, I think the other thing about innovation for me is you have to leave enough time for it, because some of these things, they percolate over time. I mean, it's the same as making music. You can't necessarily sit down and say, okay, in the next hour, I'm going to make a great song. Sometimes it takes weeks or months or years to create a great song. And so we have a team here. Most of them are PhDs, actually, in advanced mathematics or signal processing or machine learning. All of them happen to be musicians as well. And they get what we call 50% time. So they spend half their time working on anything they want. And because they have the passion and connection to what we do, they tend to be thinking very far in the future of where music might be headed, where audio production might be headed, to really reinvent the future if we can.
Right, right. There's a real spirit of creativity that kind of infuses the company, and you can definitely feel that when you're here. When you started out, it was you doing that, and now over the years, of course, you've brought in many other talented individuals. How do you let go of that, and how do you maintain that drive when you're working with teams that are working on things?
That's a really interesting question. I think for me, I love the process of creativity, and to me, that means making stuff. And so when I started, it was making a website, writing code. And then when I was hiring people, it was about creating a team. And then once we were getting good at that, it was about creating a culture and creating the system where we can do all of this work. And to me, that same creative feeling exists through the entire process. So people often ask, do you miss writing code? And I say no, because it's a human system. It's it's the same sort of thing in many ways. Is how do we build an environment where we can do all of those things? So to me, that's been one of the really interesting parts and struggles, because as we grow, as you said, how do I take the things that as a small team when we started we were really good at and teach other people to do it, and then teach teams of people to do that, and then see that expand over the years has been really awesome and gratifying as we've been able to figure it out.
Yeah, definitely. One of the other hallmarks of, I think, the success of your products is that you involve the end users in both suggesting features, of course, beta testing, which anyone with software would do those kind of things. But also, we were discussing earlier our mutual friend, Jonathan Weiner, a mastering engineer, and the perspective that he brings in. Tell us a little bit about that, how you involve the end users in the creation process.
Well, it goes back to the very beginning, where when we started, we were completely clueless. To put it in perspective, when we launched Ozone, we'd never been in a studio. We'd never mastered an album.
Right.
We'd never done any of that. It was actually our process of trying to figure out how to do this that we created a product out of it. And so to me, what that means is we've relied on all of the people in industry to help teach us and mentor us throughout the days. And it maybe is an element that I hadn't considered around our culture, where we knew what we wanted to do, but didn't know how to do it. And so from day one, we were out in the world asking for help, as opposed to maybe a company where it's someone who's a really experienced engineer starting a company, and they start knowing what they need to know. We started having to ask questions. So throughout the years, we have constantly involved our customers, and we are constantly interviewing people to sort of get to know them better. We talked about Jonathan Weiner. That's an example of someone who reached out and he said, I have some feedback. And I said, awesome. And we had lunch. And over the years, he's given us huge advice and insight into the art of mastering and the science of mastering. And over time has just actually become part of our team. So he's actually an employee here as well. So a lot of the people that we've had great relationships with, some of them have actually ended up working here and literally becoming part of the team.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's awesome. That's awesome. So you had ozone.
Yeah.
What was the next product and how did the product line develop from there?
You know what's funny is most people don't know that after ozone, we created a line of photo products.
Is that right?
Yes. That were a terrible failure.
Yeah?
Yes. I often tell other entrepreneurs one of the ways that you succeed is by failing a lot of times and then eventually one of those things works. Yeah, so we had created ozone and at the same time, digital photos were starting to become a big thing. So we made a bunch of products to help people who had digital photos. And unfortunately or fortunately, Apple did the same thing. So we made the product and launched it not that long before iPhoto came out. And so we realized, oh my gosh, we can't begin to compete with what Apple's doing in this space. So after that, it was actually Trash and Spectron. So Spectron is no longer a product we sell, but Trash was and still is a product where it's a toolbox of every possible distortion you can imagine. And one of the really fun things about making that product is I love Bob Ross, the painter, and he always talks about happy accidents when he's painting. And he actually inspired some things in Trash because there are a bunch of times when we were still learning how to write code and how to write DSP algorithms, and we made mistakes, and they sounded cool. And so they're still in the product today.
Nice.
And we would look back and we go, oops, that was a mistake, but wasn't that a happy accident? So thank you, Bob Ross.
Right. That's great. That's great. So since then, the other products, of course, there was Neutron, Nectar, and actually the one I was going to ask about is, given the photo software, did that lead to RX and that whole graphic
That's
approach?
a fascinating question. Because a lot of the RX technology is based off of image technology, image processing technology. And so one of the things we've gotten very good at is borrowing technology from other domains and other industries and reapplying it, recontextualizing it here. And so I would say I've never thought of that connection before, but definitely because we actually did a bunch of image processing for the photo product, and some of that knowledge has definitely infused where we went with RX.
Right.
But really, RX was born because we had noisy recordings and we were trying to figure out how to fix them. And we had been exposed to some new techniques in mathematics that took advantage of some things in image processing and started to wonder, could we actually apply those spectral techniques, which is sort of audio in an image almost domain that you can see, and apply that to noise reduction, and all of a sudden started getting really, really good results. And so it was definitely born out of a connection to images, but not as directly to those photo products. So that's a cool connection. Right. Yeah.
It's a good story.
Yeah. Love it.
So that also then, RX also drew out of a need that you had here, your users and things. Is that where Neutron, Nectar, the other products that you make came out of?
I would say yes. I would say that as we've grown, new products come from two places. It usually is a combination of we have some sort of new cool technology, and we think, okay, what can we do with this? And then in really getting to know our customers and how they use the products, they talk about something they're trying to do or some problem they have, and we realize, wait a second, we could do those two things together. And so I always tell people that the birth of a product it's only something we usually notice in hindsight, because we look back and realize, oh, that thing happened here, and we had that conversation over here, and that led to this and this insight. And then all of a sudden we realize, well, wait, what if we combined mastering and mixing and made connections here? What if we could take like Neutron, for an example, take the input from one track and then use it to make decisions about how to process the other track to get rid of masking, because that technology had to exist before we could even begin to solve the problem. So it's always a combination of it coming from outside in the world and having that relationship with people who can tell us the problems they're having, and then some insight, some spark of new tech or new design that comes from the inside.
Right. You mentioned using the photo imaging and some of the technology there for RX. You're also using cutting edge technologies, AI, machine learning, those kinds of things. And sometimes there can be negative connotations associated with those terms.
Oh, yeah.
Talk a little bit about that and your perspective on how that all fits into the broad picture.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, it's funny because the idea of artificial intelligence has been around for probably 60 or 75 years, at least at this point. And every time it comes up, there's always this initial, oh my gosh, what is it going to do?
Right.
And it's going to take over our jobs, or it's going to do something else. And often it, what it actually does is totally not what anyone expects. And so I see that sort of in some ways happening here, where people start to imbue characteristics that it's a person and it can do things. And the reality is, I'll take our ML tech.
Mm-hmm.
It is not as if we have some computer that we just say, okay, go and figure this out. It's a team of people who have to do a lot of very smart work to prepare audio in the right way, make a lot of decisions about how do we train and teach a computer to do something. And then once that's done, how do we take that output and, again, massage it so it sounds really good on the other side. And to us, the opportunity that we see that computers are really good at is to do things like make technical problems go away. Mm-hmm. To make setup faster. And when it comes to the sort of creative output of, are they just going to write the music or make the mix? To me, that is a uniquely human thing. It's a communication. It's a form of art. A computer will never be able to have that intentionality or that communication.
Right.
And so to me, for us as a company, we're not trying to allow machines or use machine learning or advanced technology to make music for people. For us, it's about how do we make it easier for people to make music?
Right.
And so to me, that's more likely what a computer is going to be really good at, rather than just making, the next hit record.
Right.
And part of that is because it's about a person, it's about a story, it's about a communication, and that goes away if it's just a computer that makes a thing.
Right.
And computers tend to be much better at technical things. So it's more about, can you get rid of noises? Can you get rid of masking? I can list all the technical things that computers will be very good at.
Right.
But making a creative decision about a lyric that's going to have emotional impact that is relevant to what's going on in the world in this moment, that's going to be a person that does that. And
Sure.
It's important that a person does that.
Right.
Yeah.
I love the idea that the technology clears away all that background stuff so
Yeah.
that you can focus on just being creative and not have
Yeah.
to worry so
Yeah.
much about those kind of things. I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, and it's even simple things like in our Spire product, we have for making recording really fast and simple, there's a button which is sound check where you play and it gets the levels. And not only does it get the levels, it is able to detect the instrument. Mm-hmm. And then it sets up a chain quickly for you. So you have a starting place. So it knows it's a vocal or it's a guitar. And so it's those sort of opportunities that I see to really wake up the device so it knows what's going on, so it can help you and actually get you to that creative output you want to get to faster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. So from my viewpoint of looking at the product kind of categories you guys work in, there's two main thrusts. There's the music side and there's the post-production side. Yeah. Talk a little bit about the differences between those and how the products fit into those different categories.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think a lot of it is very, very similar. That's what I would say overall. Mm-hmm. I think the biggest difference is that film tends to focus more on dialogue than does music. But even that is a continuum, because from opera to rap to dialogue, you can see how there's a lot of connection and overlap.
Right.
So a product like RX, which we have, which is, that's a product that won an Emmy for changing the way TV production happened. That's a standard in TV and film, and it's a standard for most high-end music studios. And it's the same tool. They just are using it in very different ways.
Right.
So I'd say that's probably the biggest difference. The other major difference that comes up is sometimes around surround support, where surround is one of those things that keeps coming up in the music world, and will it get adopted in a broader way?
Right.
I mean, if you look at the trend right now is to people having a Sonos mono speaker, so we've almost taken a step back a little bit in that realm, right? But in the film side, people are much more likely to be going to a theater or to have a setup where they can actually listen to surround. So in some ways it helps us, because our products, we always sort of stay atop of what's going on in the surround world. In that sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Have you been pushing into the immersive, the height speakers and all of the multi-channel kind of things beyond the 5.1 or 7.1 that we're used to?
The short answer is somewhat. And one of the things that I find really interesting on the music side is, and it's a question we ask a lot, is trying to figure out, what do people creatively want to do with that? Mm-hmm. And I've had a bunch of musicians come to me and say, what are you going to do there? And I said, whatever you need us to do. Right. And so we're trying to figure out what is going to be the way that really shows up in the world as a new type of creative expression that helps an artist to communicate with their audience in a way that they haven't. So not as much as I think will happen, but we've been asking a lot of questions.
Right.
That's why I put it out.
Right. It'll be exciting to see how far things go in that direction.
Yeah,
and what all
yeah.
becomes available there. So my last question for you is, you're running a rapidly growing company with ever improving products.
Yeah.
You're opening an office in Berlin,
Yeah,
correct?
yeah,
So you're
yeah,
expanding your international presence and things. Do you have time to compose? Do you play piano? Are you making music?
So the short answer is yes, but mainly because I now have a 1.5-year-old daughter.
Ah.
And so we spend a lot of time at the piano
Uh-huh.
playing a combination of Baby Shark or The Wheels on the Bus.
Right.
I have found a lot of ways to play variations of Wheels on the Bus recently. But that's honestly, I grew up in a family where we were all musicians, and that was something that is so important for me to share with my daughter. And so I'd say to have that experience where she's sitting on the piano next to me and she's starting to hit keys and light up and be so excited about it. I mean, to me, that's what it's all about.
Right.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Mark, thanks so much for taking the time to sit down with us here today and for
Great to have you.
hosting us here at
Thank you.
iZotope. It's been a real pleasure to visit here. The vibe in the building, you guys have this kind of semi-industrial loft kind of vibe going on, and just the attitude of everyone here and the creativity. It's really, really impressive and very inspiring.
Thank you. Well, and I'd say the same for you, and the work that you do with Sweetwater as a whole is an inspiration to not only iZotope, but the entire industry. And I really appreciate how you've pushed boundaries and been able to do things that others in the industry haven't. So please keep doing that.
Well, that's our plan. Thank you for saying so. Appreciate
thank
it. Great to see you. And thank you for joining me here in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Coming to you from iZotope HQ, I'm Mitch Gallagher from Sweetwater.